let's kick it off, and then you guys, as we go through the whole interview and the podcast, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat, and Alan should be able to see the questions as well as we go. This is an interview for Pixelsmith Studios, and we're chatting to Alan from Lamora Labs about the game Lamora: A Journey in Time. So before this interview, we sent Alan some questions, and then he also posted on his own Discord. If you guys have any questions, you can ask them there. And throughout the interview, we'll be weaving the questions into the podcast just to keep it going. But to start us off, Alan, please tell us about you and the Lamora game. What was the spark for it all, and how did you get to actually start the process of making this game?
Yeah, okay, so obviously, as we know, I'm Alan. Now, originally, I'm not a developer at all. I'm actually a cabinet maker by trade. I made furniture. But due to back issues, I decided to get into software development about 18 years ago now, sort of 17, 18 years ago. So I've been programming for a long time. I suppose the most notable thing I've done in public would be for those that played Call of Duty Black Ops, I wrote a mod called SCON, SCON, SCON mod, and it managed the servers, so it allowed you to do map rotations and kick people from games and so on, because there really wasn't anything like it at the time. So at peak, I think we had about 300 different clans using that software, so that was quite good. Really enjoyed that. Good programming experience as well. As far as me, I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I work full-time, and obviously I've very recently really got into game development over probably the past 6 months. I've been putting it off for a long time, but decided to actually make the jump. It's something I've always been interested in, and that's pretty much where Lamora came from, actually. I wanted a game idea that I had a bit of passion about, and I was sitting there for ages. I was talking to the missus, and we came up with the idea of a mobile game originally, and that's where Lamora stemmed from, a little mobile puzzle game. And that's essentially where it stemmed from. I don't know how much you want me to go into that, because I know there's other questions that cover it as well.
Yeah, I think that was actually a pretty decent opening. Sorry for the dogs barking. I did not know my dog barks that loud because I've got all the windows and doors closed to this room. Wow.
It shows it's live, it's fine.
Yeah, it's like, okay, cool. So my dog also wants to be part of the interview all the way from the front gate. Okay, so that was actually a good opening. Thank you for all that. That's actually quite a lot that you're balancing. Wow, a husband, a father, work full-time and still making cabinets while also doing software development. That's quite a bit actually to balance. I have to ask though, how do you balance all of that?
Yeah, I think somebody asked that question in Discord, and I just put the little juggling emoji at the bottom below the question. I think that sums it up well. You do what you need to do. I tend to prioritize things quite well. So something that is really important, I get that done first, and I just work my way down the list. And to be fair, if I don't have time to do game development one day, then I just don't do it. Because there are other things that are more important at this point, obviously with working full-time. So it's just a case of prioritising things that are more important. I guess that's how I get through it all. And when I have free time, then I work on Lamora.
Yeah, I see the question was by Sterlix Dev. How do you manage your time between your job and Lamora as a dad or a husband? Following from there, the one that Death Venom asked, and I think that's actually quite a good one to start off with as well. How do you handle procrastination? Because I can imagine having quite a bit that you have to juggle. Procrastination can happen quite often, because I know with myself it happens quite easily, where I would procrastinate by working on projects I'd rather work on to avoid the actual projects I have to work on. So I end up doing quite a lot and not finishing anything. I think for that, following up on how you juggle everything, how do you handle procrastination?
I suppose for me it's twofold. I've got a couple of methods. One is I try and work on something that I enjoy. So if there's a part of the game that I'm struggling with, and I'm really not enjoying myself, then I might move over to something else for an evening that I know still needs doing. So the overall objective is still getting done. But it just gives me a bit of a breather from something that's a bit tedious. But something else that actually helps is the community. It's one of the reasons that I started the devlogs from week 1. So I started building Lamora on, let's say, the Monday, and I think the first devlog was out on the Friday. And the reason for that is it helps motivate me to get things done. So even when something is a little bit rough and I'm not particularly enjoying a certain aspect, I know that the community wants the updates. And I know that when I get that section done, posting it to the community to see actually gives you a good sense of achievement.
Yeah, it's a nice real-time feedback. And what was quite cool is when I got the link for Lamora on the Pixelsmith Studios server and I went and added it to my Steam wishlist, I noticed you're not yet in early access. This is another question from your Discord server as well about the launch, but what are your plans for launching Lamora? Are there any platforms specifically that you're looking at apart from Steam and PC? What do you look at for maybe going early access onto Steam, or would you like to launch the full game as a beta and have testers and then from there develop further? Or are you just taking it one day at a time?
So I've actually got quite I say good. I've got a plan in mind. I don't know whether it's good or not yet. Ask me in a year and we'll see if it's worked. But the whole idea is what I'm working on at the moment and what I'm building the community around is launching a prologue. And the prologue is essentially the demo version of Lamora. It's the free-to-play version. Anybody can download it and they can see what Lamora is about, see whether they like the style of the game and so on. And then after that, the rest of the game is actually going to be broken up into chapters. So what I'm planning on doing is getting the prologue ready to play, launch it on Steam as the demo for Lamora. And at that point, I'm planning on starting up a Kickstarter for Lamora to try and get funding to just do more things going forward. And that hopefully will take us through Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, at which point we're going to launch as early access on Steam with Chapter 1 built, ready to release. And then as we release the chapters, we'll update it on Steam. So we're probably looking at around between 10 and 12 chapters at the moment after the prologue. So I'll talk about the story guy a bit later on, but he mentioned yesterday that 7 chapters just isn't enough for the amount of story we've got put together. So it looks as though it's going to be somewhere between 10 and 15, probably 10, 12 chapters, I'd imagine.
That actually sounds decent. So on that one, you mentioned the story guy now, and then also in our discussions, you mentioned you have someone that draws for you. How many people are you that's currently working on Lamora? What does your team consist of? How many people are you? And also being a side project of sorts, but also being a full-time project given the amount of work you guys are putting into it, how do you guys stay connected with each other, and how do you keep in touch when you do catch up, when you have meetings? Is it all remote and you just call in or check in, or do you have anything set up like a weekly schedule or a monthly schedule? Be blessed saying you're a madman, Alan.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Thanks. Yeah, so, well, if I start off with the people that are helping out on this journey, it's certainly it's not just me. That's for sure. So I am the main developer. I am solo developing the game, as in I do the work in Unity. But as we all know, there's much more to a game than just putting prefabs around a scene and making it work and programming. So I've got if I start at the beginning, when I started Lamora, I had the concept of a story that I wanted, and it all started with this holographic effect on a house, and I really liked it. I thought it was cool, so I wanted to develop a story around this holographic effect on a house. So at that point, I thought, right, well, it's something to do with time travel, sci-fi-esque type thing, and I've got a very good friend of mine, Matt Luty, who is very good at drawing, good at art. He's got an arty mind, creative mind, but he's also a very good storyteller, and he's a sci-fi buff. So I reached out to him and asked if he wanted to get involved in the project, which was an immediate yes at that point. So he's now affectionately known as the Story Guy, which is an interesting title, but it's the one that's stuck.
Yeah, story is important. Story is very important.
Indeed. But he's also been doing things like concept art as well. So actually, it might be a good time now if I share a picture of a concept piece he's done.
Oh, yes, please.
So let me just full screen that one. Probably take a moment to.
Cool. Yeah, we can see Kara's parents' house.
Yeah. So this is the kind of thing we've been working on. So he's been doing the story. There's a lot of story behind Lamora, and we've not even touched on it with the community yet. But he's also been doing concepts of artwork. So we know that when we get to build a section, what we're kind of wanting to look like. So it's a bit of a teaser, this one, because at this point, nobody knew that Kara had parents. Well, now you do. This is Kara's parents' house. And as you might be able to tell, it's in the olden days as well. So I'm going to leave your imaginations going with that one. You can piece bits together as information becomes available. This is the kind of thing that Matt Lutey's been doing.
I quite like this style, especially with the high-pitched roof and the shingles. It reminds me very much of the village type of architecture that I would have seen in quite a few games, and also reminds me of games like Diablo and series like The Witcher, where the architecture and the theme for the settings matches that design.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going for. So the assets I'm using for like the village and everything, it's part of a Cinti package called Kingdom, and it is this kind of building, and it's absolutely fantastic. I really, really do like it. And we're basically keeping the concepts around the artwork, around the models that we've got available as well. Everything needs to match. And it's just nice tidbits for the community as well to have little pictures like this coming out. And that's how we're trying to keep the community engaged on this end of things.
I quite like it. So this brings me to a question about the concept of Lamora. It's about time travel, right? So yeah. you have to balance quite a few timelines, and I'm expanding a bit here on a question by Ruan on your Discord, where he asked, how did you conceptualize the story? What sparked Lamora? And you answered that earlier when you said you wanted to do something with a holographic effect on a house. But how difficult of a task is it to balance the different timelines? Because you have futuristic, you have the past, and now, as we've seen, you have quite far in the past with the fantasy setting of the house with the shingles. I think that could be 1800. I might be mistaken, 1800s or 1600s architecture.
You're very close. 1774 that year is, I believe.
So you have quite a vast range of timelines to work with. How difficult of a task is it to balance the different themes that comes across as you go through the different times?
Yeah, so this is one of the areas that I'm not particularly great at, and this is why I got Matt Lutey involved, because he's just fantastic at throwing these ideas around. As soon as I gave an initial concept, and within 5 minutes he'd got a novel in his head of how the story was going to be laid out. But the way the process works at the moment, we're using Codex, which is like a Kanban style board but built for game developers. So what Matt does is he goes through and writes this big long story for the chapter, and what we'll do, we'll read that, and then we'll read the prologue. For instance, let's say he's written chapter 1, we'll read chapter 1 and then we'll read back the prologue and just make sure that everything fits in line with each other, make sure there's no loopholes. So we actually spend quite a lot of time going back and forth on, but we did this here, so that's going to affect that, so we need to change this. So it's quite a lot of back and forth on that.
Okay, that's pretty cool then, because I can imagine like you have to balance something from the 1700s where cultures back then, if say for example a man wore high platform boots, it was okay because at that time it was fine. But then you fast forward to 2014 or 2015, and a man wearing high platform boots is frowned upon, and now we're in 2021 and it's okay again. So you have themes that circulate throughout the communities in the real world events, and those I can imagine would sort of things I can imagine might be weaved into the game, where to make the game a bit more relatable. Correct?
Yeah, so we're trying to have a fine balance between the sci-fi aspect and the fictional aspect and reality. So what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, it is still a game.
Yes.
And it is time travel, and it is sci-fi. So it means we can play around with things quite a lot without it losing sort of realism, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and also
yeah, carry on.
I was about to say, and also what adds to your favor here is the fantasy aspect and the artistic liberty gives you a lot of freedom to play around with themes and to see how much you can extract from those themes to add to the entertainment value.
Exactly, yeah. So something that we will be combining is early in Chapter 1, we'll be merging some of the tech with the oldie worldy type buildings, and that's at the moment that's just because it's part of the story, so it makes sense when it happens. But it's one of those things that will be nice to see, because in reality we would never see high-tech stuff sort of built into one of these oldie worldy environments. But that's the nature of game development, isn't it? Able to create new things.
Yeah. And that's also something that we have a lot of leeway with, and it's fun when we're sitting here now and we're hearing about this game. I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to get this demo and play it through now. Because initially when I went onto the Steam page, I couldn't find the download button, but that's also because I'm just a spoiled designer when it comes to UX and UI things. So if something that I'm looking for isn't big up in the screen, up in my face, then I'm like, okay, what's wrong with this UI? Meanwhile, there's nothing wrong with the UI. It's just me that's spoiled. Actual Dream Eater, yes. Saying looking forward to the demo. Maybe what we could do, Alan, if you'd be okay with that, is once we're done, but later on in the interview, we can get the direct link to the Steam stores page, or now even if you'd like, we can drop it into the Twitch chat channel, so then anyone here at the moment who hasn't been to the store page yet on Steam for Lamora, you can go visit the link and then add it to your wish list. I've added it to mine already. Okay, I think it's...
I've just dropped the link on there now, so...
I see it gave three asterisks. Oh. Could be because...
maybe I'll send it to you in Discord, and then it might let you post it as the...
Yes, the Twitch settings. I remember preventing links being shared, because I saw one or two channels got taken down once because someone didn't do the... there we go. Let me see if I can drop it. There we go. Yeah, it's definitely a chat setting. Because I actually remember reading about a few channels that got taken down because people were dropping links in the chat, and it was very not safe for work links, and then those channels ended up suffering for it. So,
of course, yeah, fair enough.
So anyone who's here right now, you can just follow that link to the Steam store page for Lamora. And yes, this is a selfless advertisement for the game. If you want, I can do it in a very robotic voice, or I can do it, this is your captain speaking. If you would like, you can.
Yeah, just a note on the demo. The aim at the moment is to release later on in the year, probably maybe four months away for the demo, or the prologue as I'm calling it. But obviously with this taking place on the side of everything else, it's just a case of when it's ready, because I don't want to release something that's just no good. Otherwise, first impressions and all that, we don't want to lose that, do we?
Yeah, definitely. We want to keep the excitement alive and get all the anticipation going. Like with animation, you build anticipation and then you release all that energy into one big punch. Anime shows do that quite well if you take into account, for example, Dragon Ball Z, 3 seasons of screaming and 1 episode of punching.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I'm not meaning to saying that this cast any shade on Lamora. I'm just making exaggerated humor here about building anticipation because I work in motion design, so I know we have to exaggerate. But though on the humor topic a bit, I see a good question here is, why is Alan such a meme?
Yeah, so for those that aren't aware, I put a couple of them together that have been mentioned, and I don't know how these happen, but I just popped them on. They should be coming up on the stream, but I put them on Photoshop. So, yeah, I guess it's just I've got one of those faces that you can just pick on. So this one, I know Death Venom did this. As soon as this devlog came out and my face was like that, it's like me mentions a girl in a conversation and then everyone in a 1 meter radius. This was one of the Cinti staff members that did this one in the middle. Yeah, why am I such a meme? I've got no idea. I've just got one of those faces, I guess. I've just got pictures of my face being around like that old guy that's on all the memes. I forget his name, but you often see his face.
Yeah. I like the one that says my grandparents attending video calls be like.
Yes, it seems that most of the devlogs that come out, that there's a snippet of my face taken from somewhere and a meme's made out of it. So I've got no idea why. I found that to be an interesting question.
Well, maybe what could be fun when you have the settings for the Lamora game where you can ask feedback and people give input. This is something I'm thinking of now on the fly, but what if you had the character become memes throughout the game? So every time they visit the past and they go somewhere in the future, then they'll see a little Easter egg about their visit to the past, where it's like their face, or it's like.
It's funny. We've already got a few plans. Things that the community have said. So, for instance, there's something that they picked up on one of the screenshots I posted. I put some text on there for a quest, and everybody came back with the note that I said yada 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 at the end of the text. So look out for Easter eggs like that in the game, because things that the community have picked up on during the development process will likely end up in the finished game as well.
That's brilliant. But also with that, now that we were talking about the Easter eggs and the past and forward and some of the questions we've asked before, what has been your biggest struggle with Lamora so far?
Yeah, I saw that question, and I suppose balancing the time for the devlogs is probably the hardest thing for me. The reason being is I feel the devlogs are just as an important part of making the game as actually making the game is, because there's no point making a really good game if nobody gets to see it. And I think the devlogs help build the traction, build the anticipation for the game. So I've been religiously posting them every 2 weeks. And it is difficult, because if you've got a lot on 1 week, the devlog in my mind still needs to go out. I don't compromise on that. So I suppose the hardest thing for that is keeping on a schedule. But on that note, it sort of merges back into who's helping with Lamora. You'll see in the chat is SE Mighty Owl. He's actually jumped. He's my little brother, so he's jumped on board to help with the editing. He's done a lot of editing in the past.
Oh, that's amazing.
Streaming stuff. So I think both of the most popular videos we've got to date, he's done the editing on. So I'm actually really excited for him to get more hands-on with the editing, because he's better at it than I am, and it's one less thing for me to do. So, yeah, so I suppose that's the hardest part, but soon it won't be.
Yeah, okay. You seem to have made your little brother cry there.
Yeah, he's about an inch taller than me now, I think. So little in age. Let's go with that.
Okay, so
my younger brother. We'll go with that.
But well, I would own that, like Little John. You know, this is huge.
Yeah, that works.
I mean, it works. Little John. Everyone thinks, oh, Little John, so small, and here comes this big giant that puts you in your place. With that, also then of what's been your biggest struggle, what would you say has been the most rewarding part of this journey to date? What has been a moment of absolute satisfaction for you for creating this game so far?
that one was the easiest question, I think, for me, and it's the community. I didn't expect at all to have the feedback that I get from people. We've hit 216 subscribers on YouTube. Bearing in mind, I've only been doing this for 3 months on YouTube. We're on.
That is amazing.
5 people, I think, on Discord. About the same on Instagram and Twitch as well. So the community and the feedback that I get from people, certain people in particular as well. There's a good few people who always give good feedback, and it's become really valuable. So they're the biggest part of the biggest joy I find at the moment. The game is sort of a side effect of the community at this point. When you're struggling to get to a part of the game dev, then you know you want to do it because the community is there behind you. So as that grows, then everything else will grow as well.
Yeah. Now, on the topic of the community, you do have a Discord server, and I see you also mentioned on the page here to check Discord. What are some of the highlights of the Discord server? And I think that I would hazard a guess that everyone in the chat right now is already on the Discord server. But if you're not on the Discord server, please pop a message in the chat, and then we'll make sure there's a Discord server invite link that will pop in the chat line for you guys to access. But Alan, please tell us about the Discord server. I know I'm there, and I quite enjoy checking in and seeing the story and plot, the live dev diary, and then also chatting in the off-topic channels, how your community engages with each other and how they engage with your questions when you ask them, and how you get really good feedback, like you just said.
Yeah, so that's the main thing, really. I wanted somewhere that I could post an idea and get feedback on it. It's all well and good making a game that I think is good in my head. I think I mentioned this in a devlog. An idea may be good in my head, but it might be rubbish in reality. So that's where the live dev diary comes in, because I often post quite a lot of stuff in there. When I'm developing, there'll be a good few screenshots or videos that go on there every night. And I don't post them all to YouTube. I don't post them all to Instagram and Twitter because I don't see the point. That's what Discord's for. It's the one-on-one feedback. And as you say, there's people that feedback in have your say. And I'll post information in like story and plots that doesn't exist anywhere else as well. So the main point of the Discord server is to be sort of a closer development environment. So those that want to be closer to the development process, if they're on Discord, then they get to see a lot more than other people do.
Yeah, the Discord has been quite interactive and entertaining for me, because if I go check on Steam, there's your updates there, but when I go check on Discord, every day there is something new to read and see, and that's, for me, is quite cool, because I love to keep up to date, but I don't want to always have to log into Steam just to see what's the update there, because I know I'll be active on Discord 3-4 times a day, and it's easier for me to just check in on the Lamora Discord channel. So I think that's brilliant. Then with the coming back to the devlog and the development, there was a question from Death Venom where they asked, what's your general development and devlog workflows? And that's actually a question I didn't think of, but I think it's quite a good one, and I'd also like to ask more about that. So what is the general development and devlog workflow like at the moment?
Yeah, so that question, it can vary a little bit, to be honest. The devlogs generally follow the development workflow, so really they're synonymous. They're one and the same, because whatever I'm working on in development ends up in the devlog somewhere. Now, there's a lot of dev work that goes in that doesn't make it into the devlog, though, because at the end of the day, you want to make an interesting video, because people are going to sit there and watch it, or skip through and find the bits they do want to watch. So as far as the general development workflow goes, I had some very good advice from a lot of people here know Timps from Cinti Discord. I had some very good advice from him when I started out in game development, and that was to create verticals. So you might have an idea of a game, but if you try and tackle the whole game all at once, then you'll get overwhelmed and you won't finish it. So what I generally try and do is create a vertical on something that I want to achieve. So, for instance, let's take the UI. A lot has been happening about the UI over the past few weeks, and it has only been happening on the UI. There's been a lot of videos of the transitions between this part of the UI and that part of the UI. But what I'm trying to do is just get all of the UI stuff done on the main menu. That's my vertical. So that's basically my development workflow. What's next? Focus on getting it done. When it's done, I move on to the next vertical or the next what's next on there.
Okay, yeah, I can understand that. I mean, take it one step at a time. I remember seeing a video by Paul Smith where he was asked about his acting career, and he said his biggest secret that he believes brought him to where he is that if he had to build a wall, he doesn't look at the whole wall in its entirety. He looks at that first brick that he has to lay down, and he'll make sure that that brick he lays as best as he can. And then the next, and then the next, and he takes it one brick at a time until eventually he's built his wall.
I mean, that makes perfect sense. And I mean, I'm a developer. My day job is a developer. I'm a full stack developer for my work. So this kind of process is something that I do on a daily basis. I am used to doing this. Mm-hmm. So it's nothing new to me. So I've just transferred it over to the dev environment, essentially the game dev environment, I should say.
Mm-hmm. So being a full stack developer, and this is more for my vanity's sake, and because I'm from marketing background, what's your favorite area to be when it comes to development? Do you prefer the front end or the back end, where you have your Unix code environment?
So I prefer back end through and through. I can't stand doing UI. I'm really not a fan of it. I can do it. I do it. But I prefer to do all the code part and let the UI guys plug into all of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I've heard that from you.
No, it doesn't offend me at all. I've heard that from that exact preference from every single full stack developer I've chatted to. Is they prefer backend because the nicest answer I've received so far was that once you know how to work the back end, the front end is one big headache for you. And I can understand that because it's like you're able to do everything that the front end can't do and more. So why would you want to limit yourself?
Yeah, exactly. I think that sums it up very well. I can't put it better myself.
So yeah, but please do me a big favor. If you ever go on a call with a bunch of devs again, have a cup of coffee ready. And then as they all sit there, you take the last sip and you look at them and you go, I just finished my Java.
Right, okay.
Just look at their faces when you do that, and then let's see what comes from that.
Watch all the rolling eyes.
Yeah. As I see, is another question that I forgot to ask earlier, but with the supported platforms, what are the supported platforms you're looking at, and will there be physical goodies?
Okay, so this one, I've not really mentioned this to anybody yet. As far as platforms go, the main platform I'm aiming for is to get out on Steam, basically PC version. But I would like to get out onto the Xbox, PlayStation, and Switch. That would be the ultimate dream. Whether it happens or not, I'm not 100% sure at this point. But it would be nice to get there. What was the other part of the question? Mine's gone blank.
No, would there be any physical goodies?
That's it. So what I would like to do as part of the Kickstarter, actually, and you've got your different packages that you sign up for as the Kickstarter. I want to do physical goodies as part of that. So different parts of the game that people will already know and love by that point, because I've been spamming them on all the channels. We'll be doing like 3D prints or digital artwork and so on of the or t-shirts, hats, things like that, of the different aspects of Lamora.
Okay, yeah, that'll be cool. I'll be popping you my address in the chat later on for some t-shirts.
Brilliant.
But quite an interesting question here from Pac-Man as well. You mentioned you're a full stack developer and you shifted over for Lamora into the game dev side. But what made you decide to get into game development? Did the idea come first, or did you start playing around with Unity and then came up with the idea?
Okay, so I actually started, technically speaking, with game development long before I even thought of programming. A program called, I think it was Game Creator, that I used to use. And I found this old Star Wars game that I put into Paint, and I ripped out all the X-Wings and the little Yodas and that, and I made this little flight side-scrolling space shooter. And then my PC got stolen and I lost that game, which that was my last foray into game development until about 6 months ago, when I've always wanted to get into game development. I just didn't have the headspace to want to learn it all, so I didn't bother. But 6 months ago, I had enough energy to learn and just got kind of stuck on the idea of Lamora, and that pushed me to learn new things and push the boundaries.
Okay, I can understand that. It's very similar to, at the moment, to add some context there, is about how I understand that is that I'm doing motion design full-time for a day job, but I'm lacking the 3D skill of motion design. So, and I remember when we were chatting earlier, I told you I did a course in 3D on a tool, but it was never the 3D skill. And that was about 8 or 9 years ago, and I've forgotten pretty much all of that now. So I'm trying to regain the 3D part of my skill set. And it's quite refreshing when you get back to something you used to enjoy doing so much, and then it just feels like a brand new experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's definitely how it feels with this. I'm thoroughly enjoying the game dev. Obviously, that when it's sort of 1 o'clock in the morning and you're still working on something that's not working, then it can get a bit tiring. But overall, the process is enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. How many times have you seen the sun come up while working on this?
Yeah, generally, I'm in bed by 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody who knows me knows that I don't like sleep. It annoys me. I feel it's a waste of time. So I'll generally be in bed by 1 or 2, and I'll be up at sort of 6 or 7 in the morning. So generally, I miss the sunrise and the sunset, but just.
I can understand that. One of the questions about the coding we got from Kanak is oh, sorry, you answered that one already. It's how long have you been developing games, and what are some of your projects? You did mention something when we started, SCON.
Yeah, what? So that was more of it was a web interface really for a tool to manage Call of Duty Black Ops. So it wasn't really a game in itself. Lamora is really the first game that I've been developing as a proper game.
Okay.
So I've jumped both feet in and just gone with the idea and trying to make it through to the end, basically.
Okay, no, I can understand that. And then from there, I also see a good one from Amber, which I'm keen to see your answer. Would you make a how to build a game from scratch series?
I think possibly, I'd say on this one. It depends how much it was required. I'd like to build an RTS game as another game, and I've not seen too many how to build a game series for those. So it's possibly something I would consider doing. But in the short term, the answer would be no. Reason being is I'm already juggling so much, and I don't like to stretch myself too thin when I can.
Yeah.
But going forward, there might be the opportunity. If Lamora takes off and does well enough, then there might be time to do this kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely don't want to stretch yourself all over the place, and then you end up in a position where you're playing catch up with things you promised people, and
exactly, yeah,
end up going over your deadlines.
And it saps the joy out of things when you do that as well, because at that point you just find yourself doing things because you have to. You're not really enjoying it anymore.
Yeah, and it's important that you keep the enjoyment and the excitement alive while building this product, because why else would you be putting all those hours into it if it's not something you want to do?
Of course, yeah.
Unless, of course, it's a day job for a boss that demands unpaid overtime, then you kind of can't get out of that one.
Yeah, indeed. We're not quite at that stage just yet.
Yeah, not just yet. Let's hope we don't get there. So back to the code and how did you learn to code? Do you have any tips for newbies how did you pick up the skills? Did you just one day sit and start playing around with where most coders start with HTML, or did you have someone who eased you into the process and helped you with code, picking up languages and tags and showing you around?
So it started for me when I joined a clan for, what was it? I think Halo 1. And I wanted to build a login script for the website. So I started with HTML and PHP. That's where my coding started. And it kind of went from there. And my brother-in-law, I just recently got married, and my brother-in-law was a coder. But he's one of these genius people that just gets everything and can speak in binary and understands the matrix. So he kind of showed me a few things, but I just didn't get it. But he showed me enough to get me interested at that point.
Okay.
And I think as far as the question goes of any tips for newbies, I think as far as that one goes is find a project that you will enjoy making, that you are passionate about, and start. I don't have any formal qualifications for computer work, like computer science degree or anything like that. As I mentioned, I'm a cabinet maker by trade, but I had something that I wanted to make, so I learned everything I need to in order to make it. So if you're passionate about something, you can learn everything.
I see the SE Mattel asking, was he the one?
No.
So it wasn't Leo. Sorry. Okay, I've got only one more question that I did prep for you, and then I'm going to open to the chat for any questions they might have there. And in all of the conversation now is going off script, for lack of better description. So we'll end off the prepped questions here with the last one is, what is your hopes for the future of Lemora?
Yeah, I've been thinking a little bit about this one, and it's difficult because I really enjoy my day job that I do at the moment. I do enjoy that. But ultimately, I'd like to see Lemora succeed. And I think I've mentioned in the people involved earlier, somebody I didn't get a chance to mention was Sam Cady, who's been doing the sound. He's a very good friend of mine. Again, I've got very good friends that can do good things, which is nice. And he wanted to get on board and try and do the sound aspect of things because it's something he wanted to learn. So we said, why not give it a go? So he's doing that. So I think the main thing that I would like to see for this game is for those around me to enjoy what they're doing. For instance, Matt Luty, this is a dream job for him, doing story and doing art. This is something that Sam's wanted to do with doing sound. And with Stephen, SE Mighty Owl, with the editing, it's something that he wants to do. So if these three people can earn a living, get a job, do something that they love doing, then for me, then Lemora has been a success.
No, I fully agree with that one.
And of course, the community getting a good game out of it, which is basically the side effect of everybody enjoying themselves and making a good game.
I think there you just answered your question of how you became a meme, because on one of the memes you shared earlier, you have that trader meme, like, I ask your feedback and input, you get a game. Or you receive, okay. I receive. So there's your trade-off a meme right there.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Here's another question that came in from Be Blessed on Ask a Question. How do you do your backup and version management and organization? Be Blessed, I think this question does fit quite well here because we're now entering the realm of where we're asking questions that we all want to know. I mean, I would love to know, how do you handle your backup and version management and organization? As a creative, for me, usually it's all over the place.
Yeah, so anybody who knows me knows that I'm quite particular and detailed, so I like things just so. Source control with Unity is the bane of my life. I cannot stand it. So I come from the Node.js space where you can commit files to source tree or to Git, wherever you are. You can commit them to source and you can diff your files. But with Unity and so on, there's a lot of binary files. So it's very difficult. So essentially what I do is all my C# scripts are in a GitHub repo. so that I can do my normal code stuff with them. I can diff them and everything else you'd expect with code. But I actually use a program called Backblaze, which again, Timps, who I mentioned earlier, introduced me to. And it's, how much is it? I think it's about £6 a month, between £3 and £6 a month. And I've got a full year of backups of my hard drive, and it backs up essentially when your files change, you'll have a backup within 2 hours. So if I've made a mess up on one of my files today, I can go back to yesterday's or the day before's or the day before's. So that is my backup solution, that I can just yoink my whole project back down from any point in time over the past year.
That's pretty decent. I remember Ruan from Pixelsmith Studios one day was saying that he thinks he lost his progress, and then I think it was you that recommended Backblaze to him, and then it turns out he didn't lose that much, and all he had to do was flip the power switch on his power supply unit to his computer to get his PC back up and running. I think.
Yeah, I've mentioned it a couple of times when people have said they've had issues. It's been fantastic. I've used it a couple of times where I've made a load of changes and Unity's undo or it's diffing between certain files just isn't robust enough in my opinion. So having a physical copy of your file to go back to is just fantastic.
Yeah.
To be fair, anybody who listens to this going forward, if you've got any advice on source control with Unity, then please let me know, because I'm by no means an expert on it, and I'd love to know how the pros do it.
Yeah, that would be cool to find out how Unity works. I still need to learn Unity. On the Unity, I can't remember exactly. Is Unreal and Unity is very similar, correct?
Yeah, they are. They're both game development engines, just different products, essentially.
So have you had any experience working in Unreal?
No, I was tempted at first to have a look at Unreal, but I've never done C++ as a language, and I didn't really want to learn game development and learn a new language all at the same time. Now, it turns out since then that Unreal Engine, you can pretty much get by without coding, just using the blueprints, but I didn't know that at the time. So I jumped into Unity because I've got 10 years of experience with coding in C#, so I thought it might just fit better for me.
Yeah. Okay, that actually adds up then, because I know that with Unreal, the 3D guys, especially Aquas, quite a few of the guys I've spoken to, they prefer Unreal over Maya and Max because Unreal's feedback is just faster, and the lighting for them is just as good. So when they get their plans, they pop it into their processors, and then when they have to do their final renders, it comes from Unreal and not from the render plugin in their 3D app. And I think that's quite amazing, which is why I asked about the Unreal thing. How have you found the feedback to be in Unity when you apply changes and when you need to render or when you need to save any updates? How have you found the speed of Unity to be for you and the stability of the platform?
So I can't really compare it to Unreal because, as I say, I've never used Unreal. But Unity in general, I think, is quite good. There are some aspects that bug me with it. Part of some things of the user interface, I think, could be done better. Little things like when you click on something in your workspace area, then your whole tree structure opens up on the left-hand side, and then you've got to manually close it all. So there's little things like that bug me. But overall, I think it's a very good environment, and it's fast enough. And yeah, it's a good environment. So in as much that when you're coding, you've got all your debug stuff there. You can interact with everything as the game's running. So I think it works really well.
No, I can understand that. And then now, yeah, we've long passed the planned questions. Anyone that's here in the chat, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the stream chat. We're gonna go into the Q&A session now, and then if there's any questions, we'll answer them, and then after which we'll end off the call, and then we'll all go have supper because I'm starting to get hungry as well on my end. I'm having some pies for supper tonight. Cool. So if there's any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. If other than that, Alan, while we wait for some more questions to come up, this is now more just random questioning. But what has been the one moment where you were sitting working on Lamora and you felt that you just wanted to switch off your PC and walk away and never pick up this journey again? And how did you get over that obstacle of giving up and then just pushing through to carry on?
Okay, so I thought that might be a difficult question to answer, but early on when I started, I lost a load of work, and this comes back to the whole source control stuff. And I thought, oh right, I'll have it source controlled, and that'll be fine. So I thought I had things in the way I wanted them, and then I lost it, and I did just walk away at that point. I'm like, stuff it, I'm not going to do it again. But then I did go back and I rebuilt. And this was actually one of the reasons that Lamora was born, because I improved on what I made the first time, and then I lost it again. So I went back and I did it for the third time, and that's what created the island that is in my earlier devlogs. I think devlog 3 is probably a nice walk around of the island. It's 2 or 3, I think. And that's where the main story of Lamora started. So I walked away from it, but I created something better and just carried on from there. The motivation for doing it is because I really, really liked that island, and I don't like leaving things as though I feel I've failed. So I just had to give it another go twice.
Well, third time's a charm.
Yeah, it seems to be, and that's when I moved over to Backblaze as well for my my backup, and I haven't lost it since.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. SE Mighty Al asking, how much would you be looking at charging for the game? And is there an update path planned? For example, more story, DLC and such, any custom content or something like that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm surprised that hasn't been asked sooner. So charging for the game, I really don't know at this point. I've got a figure in my mind of sort of like around the £15 mark. I don't like games that are there for £45, and I don't think I don't think Lamora would warrant that type of price range. So basically, I'm looking for about 50p an hour of gameplay. That's a rule that I always stuck to myself. If when I'm buying a game, if I can get 50p an hour of gameplay out of it, then that's generally where the point I would buy it. But we'll see as we get closer to launch on that. That's by no means a definite. As far as the update path, this it's long term really, because we're going to be entering the early access on Steam, and the updates will come. If you've bought the game on early access, then you'll get chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 as and when they're released on there. And then when the full game is released, it'll be released as the full version at X amount, and obviously you'll get patches. We have had some ideas for DLCs and talk of Lamora 2, A Journey Back in Time, and we do have some sort of plan in place for that at the moment, but there's nothing concrete just yet.
Okay, no, that's pretty cool, because I'm with you on the game pricing. The most expensive game I've bought to date would be the World of Warcraft Shadowlands, because I wanted the box and the box set with all of the artwork books and stuff. So that one ripped a void in my wallet, never mind just a hole. But also, I don't know if I should have gotten it, because at the moment, actually no, I should have, because it's really good art, and the guys at Blizzard did a lot of good work on it. But as like the price point that you're mentioning is also, it will become more accessible, so you'll have a lot more people being able to play it, and I think that's pretty decent. And also
Yeah, I think just as you mentioned that, I think that's an important thing for me. If the game's making a profit, if everybody's earning something from it and earning enough from it, if it turns out to be a job, if they're earning enough from it, then there's no point pricing it high. You want as many people to enjoy the content as possible.
And also, who says that Lamora will be your first and only game? Maybe when you do another version, like you say, a journey back in time, or like I mistakenly wrote in the beginning, a journey through time. So you can always build and add more. And the what's also nice here is that because you're working with a timeline, and this is one of the thoughts I had, is because you're working with a timeline and time is broken, if you fix it in one place, we all know how fickle the flow of time really is.
Yeah.
So it might end up breaking somewhere else.
And this is the thing, we've actually got some really, really good story points, and I would love to go into so much detail on them, but I don't want to ruin the gameplay. It's actually quite a difficult line between having a community that's involved in the game and then not giving too much away, so you actually spoil the game when they come to play it.
Mm-hmm.
But suffice to say that we've got enough story to something I haven't mentioned is we'll be doing a graphic novel alongside the game that will be launched as well, a digital graphic novel. But we do have enough story, we have enough lore behind the game that's been developed to actually write a book on it as well. So depending on how much interest we get on Lamora and the lore and the story, really there's a whole universe that could be generated from the Lamora story at the moment. So we'll just have to see where things go on it.
Mm. Yeah, that's pretty decent. And with that, we haven't gotten any more questions, but that's also I think that's a really good ending for a good cliffhanger, I would say, for the listeners and for anyone who would be watching this interview later on. We'll be hosting it on the Pixelsmith Studios YouTube channel, and then also feeding through to the links through to Discords. But cliffhanger of a digital graphic novel coming, you've definitely got my interest there. And then I would say, Alan, thank you very much for your time and for chatting to us about your game. And I would really love to see when your game launches. I would love to play the demo myself as well, and also purchase it when it goes live. Thank you to everyone who came and joined us in the chat. It's been great having you all interact with us. And Alan, if you have any last words or exit words, over to you, and then we can end off the interview.
Yeah, okay. So just by way of a thanks to those involved, really. So thank you, Neil, for the interview. It's been really nice to do this, and I hope to do many more as the game grows. But also, huge shout out and a thank you to the community, those that are driving Lamora behind the scenes. We've got Matt, Sam, and Stephen as well. So really appreciate everybody's help, and I'm really looking forward to playing the demo as well.
All right. With that, we'll say goodbye, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Keep well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.